What would you do if your own family became the source of your child's deepest pain? In today's story, one mother's choice to protect her son from his own cousin and aunt is a masterclass in drawing boundaries, no matter how much pressure you face. 5 years ago, my world was shattered by a phone call from my son, Leo. He was crying so hard he could barely speak, shaking and yelling as he recounted what had just happened. It was heartbreaking. His cousin, Chloe, who was my sister Jenna's daughter, had gathered her friends to ridicule and harass him. They launched a cruel inquisition into his sexuality, calling him disgusting slurs. To entertain themselves, one of them, a girl Chloe was close with, even used the N-word with a hard R. My blood ran cold. I immediately drove to my sister Jenna's house. I found her in the kitchen, and I explained, my voice trembling with rage and hurt, what Leo had just told me, what her daughter had participated in. I described the state he was in, a broken mess of tears and trauma. Jenna's reaction was a placid wall of denial. "Oh, Lena," she said, sighing as if I were the one causing a problem. "Chloe and her friends would never act that way." She didn't even flinch. She didn't offer to speak with Chloe, to get her side of the story, or to even acknowledge my son's pain. She simply dismissed it. This wasn't some shocking, out-of-the-blue incident. It was a pattern. Just a few months prior, Chloe had kicked my son Leo squarely in the genitals in front of her giggling friends, calling it a joke. When I confronted them then, demanding an apology for putting my son in actual physical pain, Chloe burst into tears, wailing that it was unfair for her to face any consequences. My sister had backed her up. This is the same niece who had a habit of calling my younger son, Caleb, who was only 6 at the time, the annoying child instead of his actual name. Caleb had come to me more than once, his little face crumpled with confusion, asking me why his cousin did that and telling me how much it hurt his feelings. As one person later commented, my sister's refusal to address the issue was a blatant failure of her responsibility as a parent. While she might not be directly responsible for her daughter's friends, her total unwillingness to even speak to their parents showed a profound immaturity. Back in her kitchen, after the slur incident, Jenna doubled down on her defense. When I brought up the friend who used the N-word, she actually said, "Well, she's Mexican, so she can't be racist." Then came the words that severed everything. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "I don't know what you want me to do about this." Jenna made a choice in that moment. A choice to prioritize her own comfort over her sister's pain. She had no idea that this single, callous dismissal would ultimately sever a bond she would one day pretend to want back. That was the final straw. "If you're not going to do anything," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "then it's in my family's best interest that we stay away from yours." 3 days later, my phone rang. It was Jenna. "I spoke to Chloe," she said, her tone clipped and final. "We're good on my end." That was it. No details, no apology, no resolution. I followed up with an email, asking what exactly was discussed and what consequences would be implemented to ensure this never happened again. She never replied. To this day, not a single apology has ever been offered, not from Jenna, not from Chloe, not from any of the other kids involved. I told my extended family about what happened and my decision to create a firm boundary. While some were supportive, others, led by my own mother, began a quiet campaign to undermine me. The worst betrayal came a few months later. My younger son, Caleb, casually mentioned that Grandma had taken him and Leo to visit Aunt Jenna and Chloe. She had done it secretly, without my permission. This revealed my mother's greatest flaw, her desperate need for a picture-perfect family, even if the frame was built on lies and the picture itself was rotting from the inside. As a commenter on my story would later write, "What kind of grandparent takes a child back to their abuser?" Fury, cold and pure, washed over me. I got in my car and drove the full hour to my sister's house to get my children. I walked in, took them by the hand, and left without giving my mother or sister more than a look of contempt. After that, I distanced my family from my mother, too. About a week later, she called, apologized, and seemed to genuinely want to make amends. I slowly let her back into our lives, but with rigid new boundaries. The most important one? She is never, ever allowed to take my children anywhere without me present. Fast forward through 5 years of icy distance. We attended a few necessary family functions, like a funeral, where we'd offer nods of acknowledgement to Jenna and her family, but nothing more. No attempts at reconciliation ever came from her side. The only time she reached out was to add me to a group chat. asking for a ride to a birthday party in Chicago, with absolutely no mention of the deep wound she had carved into my family. Then, the invitation arrived. Jenna is getting married, and we were invited. I declined. The family pressure, which had been a low hum for years, became a roar. My mother called, asking if she could take my kids to the wedding. I gave her a flat, unequivocal no. My brother has been the most vocal, insisting I need to squash my feud because family events aren't the same anymore. This pressure is why I know declining the wedding is the right call. As another commenter wisely pointed out, if I were to go and something happened, I already know for a fact my sister would do nothing to fix it, leaving me to handle it myself. It's a cycle I refuse to re-enter. Finally, having had enough, I sent a message to our family group chat. I wrote that while they may not understand the depth of what happened, it was incredibly damaging to my children, and my decision to protect them is final. I asked them to respect my boundary and to leave my family out of the wedding discussions. I ended by saying that if anyone couldn't respect that, I would have no choice but to distance myself from them as well. The responses were immediate, filled with weak deflections like, "I'm sorry if I ever made you feel that way, and I wasn't trying to pressure you." It's been 5 draining years of jabs, guilt trips, and being told I'm harsh and unforgiving, all because I chose to protect my children from people who harmed them and refused to ever say they were sorry. I'm standing firm. Ultimately, this story teaches us that being a parent sometimes means being a fierce protector, even if it makes you unpopular. True family isn't about obligation, it's about safety, respect, and accountability. So, what would you do? Would you sacrifice your peace and your children's well-being for a fragile family harmony? Or would you draw a line in the sand, no matter the cost?